Robin, to the Batmobile!
Hello, Bat fans. I'm sure I've said that before. I've got a bit of deja vu going on. We have a super full video for you this week. In our last video, we created the Caped Crusader, and we thought that not having the dynamic duo together would be criminal. So, today we're going to be creating Robin, the boy wonder. He was played by Burt Ward in the 1966 Batman. If you've watched our previous video, some of you may have noticed that this big base could possibly hold 2 people. Yes, we did a little cheat last time on our video, and we didn't actually glue Batman into the base, and he may be making an appearance later on. So enough of my waffling. What have I done so far? So obviously we've prepared the base and got it to the painting point, the point of painting, I should say. And we are just black priming, gloss black priming the base. The William Shakespeare statue that stands on this base, we also black glossed. And the sign for the front, the Batman sign, we also did that. Look at that excellent bit of masking there. So I've masked off the part of the base because we're just going to put a white primer down. And the reason that we're doing this is because we want to go over with a yellow, so it's going to be bright yellow. And to put a yellow over a black base, it's just not going to work. It's going to take a lot of layers. So this way, if it's white, if it's light already, it will then enhance the yellow. And here is that moon yellow. To get the yellow so bright, I did have to lay down a good few layers and let it dry in between as well, each layer, because it just becomes a mess otherwise. And then once it's dried and we've removed the masking, we're just going to go around touching up the areas that the yellow's gone over or the black has, vice versa, gone over. So yeah, it's just a case of touching up now. So I want to paint the bat in the middle and I painted it with a primer, a black gloss primer. And there's probably a better way of doing it than I did do it, but this is the way I chose to do it. So I just masked off the yellow part to leave the bat, so I could just paint that. We're then going to move on to the figure itself, and we're going to do a priming layer. I usually use a black primer, that's just my preference. However, because this model, his clothes are so bright and they're quite a vibrant colour, I wanted to keep that. So if you lay down a white first, it would be easier to keep that vibrancy. So his legs, arms, torso, cape, they're all white. Gloves, I'm just doing those now. The only part that is going to be black would be his head and his neck. And that's because we want that zenithal effect in those areas. So here I am doing the black primer for his head, and you'll see in a minute that I also do his neck because we want those things matching. Once I've done his neck, you'll see me then go into all the creases around his waistcoat and his arms of his unitard, and then up the front of the laces as well. And it's like a bit of a reverse zenithal. We want those dark colours to come through the reds and the greens that we're going to put down. And then just thinking about his shorts as well, we're just doing the same. So in the crotch there's going to be shadow, and then in all the wrinkles we'd put some shadows there. Onto the fun bit, we're getting some colour on the model now. So this is sick green that I'm using, and this is the base of his green costume. So I'm doing his hands, his shoes, and I'm going to call it his baby grow, because it is, if you think about it, because it's underneath his waistcoat. So his baby grow is all green. And then this green is a darker green, which I am going to layer on his gloves, especially in the palm of his hand, on the underside, so where the shadow would be. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a couple of layers, letting it dry in between each stage. So again, going back to the sick green for the base of his baby grow, and then is the sleeves of his. See, it's a baby grow, isn't it? It is. So going for the sleeves in the same green. And here I am again with the darker green, again doing the underside of the gloves, and just where the shadow would be, really. And you can see me building that up. And then again, thinking about the shade and the shadow, where that would be. It would be underneath it, between his legs, underneath the where the what's it called? Waistcoat, where his waistcoat overlaps, just underneath that lip there, and then in all the creases there would be shadow as well. And then also the creases in his sleeves, we just need to darken and add some shade in there as well. So we're just putting that in. And then I've used some masking putty, and I've just popped that on to cover his baby grow, the bottom of his baby grow. And we are now onto the red, painting the waistcoat. I did 2 coats of this. So removing the putty, and then we're just having a look at the model itself. And I always flip it upside down so I can see all these hidden edges. So can you see me pointing them out? And basically I want to fill those in. So it's a case of just touching up the edges. Now in a minute I'm going to make a mistake, and some of the red is going to go onto the green, and you'll see me go off camera with my brush. There it is, I've just made the mistake, and all I'm doing is filling the brush with water, and I flood the area before it can dry. And then if I go back over the mistake, the water gets sucked up into the brush and it takes the paint with it. So just a helpful hint, really, that not all mistakes are a disaster. Just removing the putty and having a look, and checking out the body as a whole, just to make sure that it's kind of all matching. And then that's me pointing out the areas that we need to go and touch up again and make tidy. Now, because I'm going in with the red, What we don't want is a solid line, because that line that I've just painted is going to be thicker than the paint I've just laid down. So you'll see me dipping back into the water and then fanning it down a crease and into his body. So it's blending it, it's wet blending basically, so you don't get any harsh lines. You'll also notice that I'm only painting the front. Robin wears a cape, very flash cape, might I add. And what we don't want is, over time, if you glue onto paint over time, that connection is going to be weaker. It's not going to be as strong. So the less paint that you can glue on, the better. So I didn't paint the back, and I've saved on paint. Hurrah! So yeah, I didn't paint the back. I think at this point it's a really good example of the zenithal as well. So how we laid the white and then we went over with the black in the creases, because you can still see it through the red that we've laid down, and you can see it's quite obvious here. And then we're doing his collar. So his collar isn't white, his collar is yellow, because that's actually connected to his cape. But because his cape is so bright and fantastic, we need a white base underneath it first, so it really shows the colour. Here I'm using a darker red, and we're gonna, just like we did with the gloves and his baby grow, we're just gonna go into the shadow and shade of his waistcoat. And then again, his laces up the front, they are also the same yellow as his cloak. So again, a white undercoat for those. His belt is black and gold. So we are first going to white where we want the gold to be, because we want that to be lustrous gold. So we've whited those areas, and then we're going to go in with a black. And then because we've got the black out, we don't want to waste that, so we are going to go in and do the logo on his chest. This took for ages, for hours, just because it's so precise. So it's a black background with a white undercoat first, and then the yellow over the top. And it was moon yellow, same as the base that I used over the top. And it looks really good once it's finished, but yeah, it did take a long time. And then onto the legs. So over the primed legs, we've used the elf skin tone, and it was a simple spray all over. And then on as a highlight, we used a flesh tone. So on his thighs, calves. So we're looking down his leg here, because that's the way the the light would hit. And that was it with the leg, really. And then we're on to his shoes. So I used the putty just to save his legs, and then I sprayed on the sick green for his shoes. And then we're going to just touch up the areas that we need to. So you'll see that I've added in the dark green now into the little tin, and I'm shading basically. I'm going into all the wrinkles of his shoes, and I'm just putting down some of this darker green, and that's all we're doing is shading. So using this Vallejo Gold, we're going to now go over the white. So his belt is black and gold. And it looks so lovely at the minute, and I make such a mess of it that I have to go around tidying up with the black. So this is what I'm doing right now. So doing research and looking at some of the old videos of Batman and Robin, I'd forgotten how they used to climb up buildings, how they would walk on a rope up the buildings, but they weren't obviously walking up with a rope. They'd turn the camera on its side. So, and I'd completely forgotten that's how they did that special effect. I just think it's brilliant. Wanted to share it. So on to this Vallejo True Metallic Metal paint. I've never used it before, but thought it was a really nice paint to use. So you'll see me doing his laces now, and then moving on to his collar. And of course the collar is part of his cape. There are little eyelets joined to his laces, and off screen I do those in gold. And then on to his face. So we're just laying down the warm tone, so we're going up his face for that, and then thinking about his arms, we're just going to focus this warm rosy tone on his elbows and in the crease of his arms. So that's where we want a darker tone. And of course, whatever you do to his face, you're going to have to do to his arms, so it all kind of matches. That looks like I'm levitating a arm, but I've got something metal above there with these little magnets. It's really handy actually. But yeah, so no levitation, but they're matching. And then using this base flesh tone, we are filling in the rest of the features really. So keeping away from those rosy tones. And you'll see me doing that on his arms. So the top of his arm, and then we're going to just flick it over there. So again, the top of his arm, a little bit of his forearm, and up the back of his forearm. And again, same with this. So whatever you do with one arm, you've got to do with the other. Onto his face. So we are doing some washes. So we're going to do a blue, yellow, red wash, and removing any excess with a sponge. Because I use washes regularly, I have made up these three colours, the blue, yellow and red washes. It's just paint with water, which I keep for this occasion, for skins. And then back to the airbrush. So we've got a natural skin tone now that I'm just going to cover the entire face with. So all that washes that we've just done, I'm just going to cover. But it's really thin. This is a glaze that I'm using, and I'm going to glaze his arms as well. So we're giving a more even tone of skin. And then moving over to the wet palette, we are using the Fairy Flesh set, and I've put them on screen as they are in the palette. So onto his skin. I find this really difficult to explain, but you get a feel for what tones need to be where. And the best way I can describe it is that underneath his chin and his nose and his forehead, if his forehead was showing, they would be more reddier tones. They would be darker tones. So you can see me building on the screen right now that tonage. And then, especially with men, moving from his hairline, so from behind his ear, I tend to go through from brown downwards to the lighter. So the lightest tone is in the centre of his face. And you can see me dipping back into those, so darker under his chin, behind his ear, moving over his cheek. Is the lighter tones to the middle of his face, over his cheeks. So I've tried to show a good example of kind of building up his skin tones, but equally I don't want to be boring, so I'm going to give you a minute just to kind of get your head around what's going on, and then we'll chat some more. So I know I said I was going to be quiet, but I can't, because I read that Robin had 350 variations of the holy moly Batman quotes, and reading some of them, they are hilarious. So I've gone from holy guacamole, holy mashed potato, holy beef burger, holy ashtray. That's a weird one. Holy time bomb. There's one about holy moly, holy donut. I don't know. But there's loads of them. And that's where the old holy guacamole came from, Robin, which I think is brilliant. I didn't know that. The things you learn. What is the most obscure holy moly quote you've heard? Let me know in the comments. So, back to business. There'll come a point where you think, I don't want to do too much more. Is the skin right? So we start moving on to other things because we want to add context to the piece. And by kind of filling in his eyes, in this case he's got a mask on, so by filling that in we can see how the skin will fit in with what's going on around it, and that's a really good indicator of whether we need to go back into the skin and do something with it, or whether we can just crack on with the hair and, in this case, a mask or a hat or whatever you've got on your model. So I have filled in his eyes using highlight from the wet palette, and I've started his hair using these two browns that I'm showing you on screen. Feels like I have a confession every video, but I confess I did not video his eyes being done. I don't know why, I don't know how it happened, but it happened, so I'm sorry for that. But moving on swiftly, so onto the signs at the back. I just chose really clashing bright colours. So this pink, obviously I thought, yes, I've not used it before in something, I'm going to give it a go. And then this dark blue I thought would be a really nice contrast, which then I really regretted because there was a lot of touching up to do. Yeah, be careful of your colours that you're choosing. I kind of was a little bit more savvy with the second choice for the other sign and used colours that you could easily go over. I mean, for this sign particularly, I had to do a white base for certain colours, which you're essentially doubling up your paintwork. So this second sign, I had kind of learnt my lesson and I chose my colours more wisely. It's attached to a communicator, and there is also a Batman sign for the front of the base. In our last video, we show how to do those things, so we didn't want to rehash what we'd already done. So they're there if you want to have a look at. Here we're actually rubbing and buffing, so we're doing all the kind of metal-y work around the base, and we're just highlighting some of the bats, or all of the bats I should say, going round, and then touching up with some black gloss where we'd gone over onto the paintwork. I mean, we touched up with gloss primer, sorry. And I think it looks really good, really effective. Not an obvious thing that we've done, but it just adds, which is really nice. It's really good. One of my favourite parts of this model is this, the William Shakespeare bust, and we did it in the same autumn gold rub and buff as the metalwork going round, and it's just really cool. It's just a nice little touch. Another favourite part is, in fact the most favourite part, is on the Batman sign. The little face of Batman. I painted it this time and I added the blue, and it's at the end of the video in its entirety, and I really enjoyed doing that. It's just those little touches that make your model different. So all I've got to say now is holy moly guacamole, it's rubbing.